Before I read today's article to you, let me tell you about the latest episode of the Mercycast, which is hosted by Raleigh Sadler. I joined him to talk about how we can see our stories as part of God's greater narrative. This is the first of a few podcast episodes I've already recorded with him, and so I'll look forward to sharing those with you in the coming weeks too. Now, on to today's article. Last week, I asked which book you'd like me to cover first in a new, short, devotional series called The Featherlight Devotionals. Releasing Monday mornings, this series will explore tough, often overlooked books of the Bible. The winner of the poll was the minor prophet Malachi. As you'll know, if you read my recent article on Leviticus, I have a passion for introducing people to lesser-known parts of the Bible, whether they be genealogies, prophets, or legal codes. However, I don't want people to simply read passages and books like these, and then go away unchanged, or with no idea how such texts apply to their own lives. My hope is that this series will go some way towards addressing that. Each devotional will be recorded so you can listen to it on the way to work, as well as written out in full so you can go through it at your own pace, perhaps over breakfast. While I will provide the text each week, I would encourage you to use your own Bible instead. If you can, maybe consider printing out the devotional at home so you can mitigate any distractions that might come with reading on your phone or laptop. I'm giving myself a 500-word limit for these devotionals, but I would recommend setting aside about 10 minutes each Monday to give yourself enough time to read, reflect, and pray. So, what will the Featherlight Devotionals look like? 1. Reading. Whether you're reading the text yourself or listening to the audio, this is the biggest hurdle for many people. If you can commit to this first step, the rest will flow far more easily. We have an enemy who would love nothing more than to keep Malachi outside of your peripheral vision, but we also have a spirit within us that longs to feed us with the bread of heaven contained within. We will read the passage together twice during each devotional, once quickly and once slowly and prayerfully. 2. Silent reflection. This is the hardest thing I will ask you to do each week. Take a full 60 seconds to sit, close your eyes, unless of course you're driving, and reflect on the passage. I'll give you 3 possible questions to consider during this time, but don't feel restricted to those. The important thing here is to think seriously and sincerely about the Word of God. Time is a precious commodity, especially now, but the best thing we can spend that commodity on is God. 3. Prayer. Next, we will pray together. I will provide a written prayer based on the passage. Listen to or read through that prayer and then continue on in your own words. Perhaps you could even write out a prayer yourself. 4. Contemplation. Think of each devotional as a template. Taking this time of contemplation is the final stage in working with that template, to see for yourself how God is speaking to His people in the day's passage. Reading, reflecting, and praying through the words will help in the moment, but contemplation will help to decide how this will affect you in the days, months, and years to come. 5. PAQs. Finally, at the end of each devotional, I will give some concise answers to questions you might possibly have about that day's text, otherwise known as possibly asked questions. Of course, each week will follow on from the passage prior, and so if you have any questions, I'd love to discuss those too. You can always leave a comment or email me directly. Recommended articles of the week. Books don't just happen. Long before the ink dries, the words themselves have to form, and that takes personal growth, pruning, and perseverance. The title, An Update on My Novels, hardly does this justice, because Amy Mantravadi brings to bear the full force of her literary experience, both good and bad, to form what I can only imagine will inspire the opening chapters of her biography one day. The novels themselves, a historical fiction about Martin Luther Erasmus, and Philip Melanchthon sound pretty excellent to boot. Adam Thomas is a faithful, God-honouring preacher in Wales, the birthplace of a number of staggering revivals, and now one of the least Christian countries in the UK. We have two options when this happens. We either compare ourselves to the end of such revivals and find ourselves wanting, or to the moment before they occurred. The latter leaves us with far more hope. Wendy Willard is an expert in leading teams. She is one of the most motivated people I know and loves those around her dearly. In her latest piece, she talks about leading from behind when motivation has all but dried up. What do you do when everyone around you seems to have a brave face plastered on, but you feel wretched? Finally, I'd love to share with you again my recent episode on the Mercycast with Raleigh Sadler. I would highly recommend you go and listen to that now and look out for upcoming episodes that I'll tell you about in the weeks to come. Have a wonderful day, grace and peace. Adson Try Ravenhill.